Hello and welcome to this webinar, NextGeo's webinar series. We are often offering a unique webinar today celebrating the International UN Women's Day. And as you can see, I have a whole panel of very highly skilled women from various parts of the Earth observation community. And you will learn to know them during the next hour or so. So my name is Bente. I am going to be your host, and I also have some nice, tempting offering for you to engage with us at the end of the webinar, so please stay on. But before we really kick off this webinar, I will do, as usual, the normal weather report round before, so that people can join us as the webinar, as they are entering the room. So, first of all, we do a very quick tour de table on the weather only, and then you will learn about the individuals later. I will start with the other side of the Atlantic. Angelica, can you tell us what the weather is like where you are?
Yes, good morning to all. I am in Washington, D.C., and the weather today, we have around 45 degrees, and the lows will be in the 40s. And we have about 50% chance of showers. So wow. Cloudy.
Yes, that was very detailed. And in Fahrenheit, another system, non-metric system.
Yes, Fahrenheit. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We will talk about interoperability during this webinar. So.
Excellent.
Thank you, Angelica. And then Sandra. We go back to Europe.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Cabrera, and I'm in Luxembourg. Then the weather here, I think we're in 5 degrees, around 5 degrees Celsius. I can't be Fahrenheit, sorry. Of course, with rain and cloudy.
Yes,
that's usual.
That's how it is. That's how it is sometimes. And then we travel far south to the African continent. Lilian, you sound.
Sorry, this is Lillian Do in Nairobi, Kenya, and the weather here is sunny and beautiful, but with a 50% chance of clouds and some rain later on. Thank you.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. And we go back up to Europe to Codrina. Where are you and what's the weather like?
Hi, everyone. So I'm in Bucharest, Romania, and the weather here is actually really nice. It's a very sunny day, unlike yesterday. I think we have about 10 or 12 degrees Celsius, and I have no idea about any chance of rain, but I don't think there's any, so.
Okay, thank you. And then we move further south to France. Marie-Francoise.
So I am in Toulouse, very south of France, and the weather is the sky is gray, but there is a lot of light and the temperature is mild, 15 degrees Celsius. So I think it looks like probably in Washington, but with a lot of light. So it's nice.
With a lot of light, yes. Thank you. And well, so I am in Norway, just a little northwest of Oslo, and we have beautiful winter weather. It's not sunny, but we do have some snow, even though it's been very little this year. But we do have some snow around plus minus around zero Celsius, which is the freezing point. Plus or minus depends on which part of the day it is. Right now is probably plus. Okay, with that weather report, we can start to talk about the webinar itself. We will cover, as you have seen when you register for this webinar, we will cover different aspects of Earth observations. And we have then representatives, as you also learned, from different continents. So you will learn from their perspective, Earth observation. You will also learn from the private sector, for the governmental administration, from international organizations. So you will cover a spectrum of actors in Earth observation and different phases of the value chain of Earth observation. It will be very short, of course, because of the timeline here, but you will get a taste of it, and you will learn that women of all ages, you can see that we represent different generations in generation equality. We can all contribute. We all have, I called in Twitter, I called us, some of us with mad skills in Earth observations. It's a totally normal thing, as we said when we were preparing for this, but I think it's important for you to to see what you can do that is perfectly normal to be an Earth observation expert, no matter where you're from, no matter what your interest in Earth observation is. So we will start with Angelica, who will take us one step at a time as the title of her talk. Then we will move quickly down south in Africa and learn about how Earth observations are being applied, actually. And you will also, Lilian will also introduce us to some gender perspectives. And then we will go to see how the private sector is involved with Codrina from Romania. And then we will see there's not only technical issues related to Earth observations, it's also legal issues. And Sandra will introduce us to that aspect of Earth observation. And finally, Marie-Francoise will talk about innovation and technology, and perhaps a little bit of standards. I don't know. We will see what she will talk about. And all of these women has been asked to also share their perspective on generation equality. You know, how is gender equality these days? Because this webinar is, of course, a celebration of the International Women's Day, and it's 25 years anniversary for something called the Beijing Roadmap. And so we are taking stock of what is the status of gender equality these days. So I think this little webinar will contribute with some reflections on that particular issue. So it will be a little bit of learning about Earth observation and the perspective on gender equality. So, and now I will actually let you know more about the speakers, and we will do a quick tour de table. Then we will have the first presentations, and in between each of the presentation, you will be able to ask some question. In fact, I would encourage you to tell us what the weather is like in where you are. So where you are and what the weather is like. And I see Alice, thank you very much for offering us a weather report from Barcelona. Thank you. You know how it is. You've been attending several of these webinars. So let us know, and don't be shy. Ask us questions and engage with us. I will let you ask some of the questions in between the speakers, and then at the end we will have a lively dialogue around these issues, Earth observations and gender equality. Now, I will do the tour de table. Angelica, we will start with you. Can you present yourself shortly?
Yes. I am the lead hydrologist for the Office of Water Prediction of the National Weather Service and the National Administration for Atmospheres and Oceans in the United States. I'm also the co-chair for 2 initiatives within the group on Earth observation. I have a PhD in mathematics and engineering, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. We are very thrilled to have you here. Now, the next one I will ask to introduce herself is Lilian.
My name is Lillian Do, the Agriculture and Food Security Lead at the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. RCMRD is an intergovernmental institution serving East and Southern Africa, over 20 member states, and supporting them in design and development of products and services for decision making. My background is in information technology and a master's in geographic information systems. and my expertise for the last 7 years has been in agriculture and food security and resilience programming. But I'd also like to mention that I am a mother to 2 kids, and I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lilian. And next one is Codrina.
Hi everyone. My name is Codrina Ilia, and I'm very honored to be part of this webinar. So thank you very much for the invitation. I am a GIS and remote sensing specialist working at a company in Romania in TerraSigna. I would also like to mention at this point that I am one of the directors in the board of directors of AfriGEO, which is an international organization for promoting open source for geospatial solutions, and I'm also highly involved in the Romanian community for open source in geospatial.
Thank you, Codrina. I apologize. I think there was some noise on part of what you said, but you will we will learn more about you when you do the presentation. So all of us will turn off our microphone when we are not speaking. For saving the bandwidth. So, and now, Sandra, let us learn about you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Cabrera, and I am based in Luxembourg. First of all, thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Bente, for this initiative. Very, very interesting. And I'm currently a PhD at the University of Luxembourg. I'm studying the legal aspects of the Copernicus open data policy, and my background is in international relations, but I did a master in space law, so between policy and space law. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And then I'm sure Lilian will come back. Marie-Francoise, last but not least, Marie-Francoise Voidrot.
So my name is Marie-Francoise Voidrot. I am graduated in meteorology and in computer sciences, and I have worked more than 30 years for Meteo France, which is a French weather service, working in between technology, IT, and applied to meteorology data, but not only for Meteo France, also for outside customers like the forces, the Spatial Agency, and so on. And I have been the chair for the Meteocean Domain Working Group in OGC, and then I discovered that all the fantastic projects I have done were thanks to standards, and this is why I was very interested in joining OGC to be in between all these communities of technology, applied science, and thanks developing the standards.
Thank you. So with that, we know everybody, and then I think we are ready to hear about your step-by-step, Angelica. The floor is yours. We will turn off our cameras also, but we will still be here, I promise. So Angelica, you probably have turned off your sound. Yes.
Okay.
And then
Thank you.
hide the little white thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So talking about Earth observations, I wanted to share today my experience with the group on Earth observations. I will be, okay. So I was introduced to the group on Earth observations in a GEOS in the Americas in 2009. And I participated because I was doing research in Earth observations applications for water quality. So I came to this conference, and that was the end, the beginning of everything. Between 2009 and 2011, with a group of friends, we started talking about what we would like to do in the Americas. And it was clear for us that our objective was to raise the technical capacity in the use of Earth observations in Latin America. So in 2011, at that moment, didn't exist AmeriGEO or anything. We started with actually a group of 4 or 5 friends, to do capacity building. We invited one of the persons that I'll be mentioning later, Jim Nelson. He came in, provided classes on hydrology, actually. We were at the Naval Academy, and we had like 80 participants that year. This is another class. We started connecting to NOAA with the GeoNetcast system. Here is Ricardo.
Angelica, I'm sorry
Yes.
to interrupt, because the slides are not visible to the audience, it seems. I see them, but there is something going on with respect to... Well, let's see. Let's hear. Slides are visible, no problem, Florence says. Okay. So maybe you, for those of you who are, allies, but there was also Codrina is not seeing them. Your slides should be visible. No, she is seeing them. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. So I think maybe allies, you can go in and out and see if that helps. Yes, Monica says the slides is visible, and Lilian, yeah, welcome back, Lilian. Yes, allies, go in and out. I'm sure you can join the webinar after you leave it again. Sorry about that. Okay, Angelica, sorry, we interrupted you. Go on.
So between 2011 and 2015, we were sort of an ad hoc group, and we call ourselves GeoCLIC, the Community for Hydrology in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we did actually capacity building in associations with academic institutions in Latin America at that time. So in 2014, at that point, the US and other countries were aware of what we were doing ad hoc in the Americas. The GeoPrincipals actually met in Bogota, Colombia, and decided to create AmeriGEO. AmeriGEO was later then launched at the GeoMinisterial in Mexico. And as you see, there is a big group of leaders that are women. Then this is actually what have we done in the last 5 years? We have visited Colombia, Costa Rica, Brazil, Peru, with what we call AmeriGEO Week, and is a week of capacity building. In the later years, we have done symposiums to invite the Latin American community and community outside of the continent to participate. We provide instructions for targeting government institutions, mainly because they don't have the luxury to be in a semester at the university. So these are very intensive courses of about 32 to 40 hours during the week to learn about applications in agriculture, in hydrology, and so forth. So these are just pictures of our meetings. Our last one was CONIDA, the space agency in Peru. In Brazil, we were at INPE. They were our hosts. In Costa Rica, everything was done through the GEO Costa Rica, but also the University of Costa Rica. And in Colombia, we partner with National University and GEO Colombia. We have trained about 500 people in this AmeriGEO Week throughout the time of AmeriGEO. Then I want to jump into another initiative, which is very close to my heart. GeoGLOS is the Global Water Sustainability. How it started was through independent path. And I want to mention here Jim Nelson, Dr. Jim Nelson from BYU, from Brigham Young University. He was doing some work. He's also a hydrologist. he started some work. In the meantime, I was doing capacity building. We met at one of these events in Latin America. And since 2015, 2017, I'm sorry, when GeoGlows was launched, we have been working on creating a global hydrological forecast. And you see in the upper right corner, this is the list of partners that are part of that project. And a big partner is ECMWF in Europe. We also have USAID, ESRI, the World Bank, and so forth. We presented the hydrological forecast in Kyoto, and I want to go to this side very quickly. Okay, so here is the hydrological forecast. I hope that you can see my screen. And what basically it does is you can go to any place in the world. And here I'm going to South America. And it takes a little bit, but it will load now you can see the rivers, right? And this is live. Then I can ask for a hydrological forecast for any stream in this service. So it is wonderful because it is public. We have been working with several countries around the world for the implementation, and voila. Here is the stream flow. I mean, it's for hydrologists, right? So this is wonderful because communities who don't have, in countries mainly who don't have the capacity to produce a forecast, will be able to have some information. So I want to go back to, so my final message is that, throughout all these years, I have not been alone. I have been working with amazing people who have similar objectives, who are interested in raising capacity in many areas. And so alone, I go by this proverb: individually we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. And I want to leave it here. Bente, you asked me to talk about the equality. I think that is still that's a challenge in many countries, in some more than others. But I think that we, in the Americas right now, we are trying to work at an earlier stage. So we want to go not only teaching and talking to the younger generation, and I'm talking about high school students, elementary school students. It is necessary to start inspiring women and in general the younger generation at an early age, so that they are more aware of all their decisions, and the implications on the well-being of Mother Earth. So it is a challenge, and I'm very happy to see this type of webinar, and I hope that we can continue working together, promoting Earth observations.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelica. That was both informational and inspirational. You have done a lot, obviously, in the geo community, and you were awarded. We had like a community award for those who are contributing to the group on Earth, to the wide global Earth observation community. And it's amazing, as you say, what we can do together across global and cultural barriers. So, do you have any questions? So now I will encourage you to ask questions to Angelica. it could be both on the topic she presented, and it can also be some comments to her perspective on gender. But we will come back to that at the end of the webinar as well. Yes, I don't see any questions now. I think we will take them towards the end and maybe in between the others. So be quick when the presenters is ready, has ended their presentation, be quick to ask. Now we are going swiftly over to you, Lillian. Are you prepared to present? I saw some sign of life. Meanwhile, lights, okay, yes. Maybe you should turn on your sound. Not maybe I have forgotten. Yes.
Yeah, so I think we are now on.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so as I said, I work at the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development, but RCMRD is a network of also has a lot of networks and collaborations with other partners, and key among them is the hub region, and in East Africa we call it the East and Southern Africa hub. But RCMRD is also the host secretariat for AfriGEO, and the role of AfriGEO again is to coordinate geo activities in Africa, but also identify existing capabilities and provide a platform where the African partners can collaborate and engage and also participate in GEO. But it also allows Africa again to identify how it can also contribute to the GEO initiatives. And currently we have 27 member governments and 9 participating organizations under AfriGEO. And one other collaboration that I'll be quick to mention is the Global Open Data Initiative. And this is through an MOU with RCMRD to create more openness in data availability for agriculture and nutrition, and even for reporting on the SDGs and some of the initiatives in Africa, such as CADIP. Again, this is just a few of the relevant collaborations that I'm mentioning. And the other one, especially for agricultural monitoring, is with the GeoGLAM, the Global Agricultural Monitoring Initiative, together with the University of Maryland and the governments in East and Southern Africa. And my work basically revolves around turning Earth observation data and methods into usable and palatable products for decision makers. And these are mostly government, but also private entities. And again, making sure that this information is suitable for consumption by different audiences. And here are some of the initiatives that I and the team are leading here at RCMRD. And looking at ways of making sure that data on vegetation and surface water in our rangelands. Kenya is 70% arid and semi-arid, and a lot of pastoral and agro-pastoral activities happen in those areas, making sure that data is available for monitoring the conditions to inform decision making, but also using innovative methods to map croplands to inform decision making. And this is not just in Kenya. But also supporting the crop insurance program. And through the support, they've achieved a 70% cost reduction, but also a reduction in the time it takes to do their district level sampling from 1 week to 1 day. Again, through different collaborations, we are doing drought monitoring and yield estimation as support to the governments to monitor the food stocks in the country and to try to look forward and understand what the supply and the demand will be. And together with GeoGLAM, we've been implementing crop monitors at national level and at the regional level. And the regional level is 10 IGAD countries in the Horn of Africa, in the East and in the South, that make up the IGAD region, the Intergovernmental Authority for Development group of countries. And the goal of these monitors is to make Earth observation data more readily available, but also provide avenues through the crop monitors for countries to drive their data collection, their assessment, and their reporting process. So what happens is the end result of these crop monitors is an actionable synthesis for decision makers to use for decision making. But apart from that, I'm also involved in technical trainings, and I sit in different technical advisory bodies. And you know, relevant to the day-to-day on women and gender equality, RCMRD has different initiatives that it's implementing, and these include the Space Challenge that brings the space science to children in primary school and in secondary schools. And again, as part of the gender strategy at the global level through the Sabir network, we have developed a gender strategy that seeks to see more participation and inclusion of women in technical trainings and in exchanges that happen within the organization and its networks. But through, again, NASA and USA, there's the Women in Science camps that are held annually that seeks to bring together girls and women, girls in high school with mentors in STEM coming from the different organizations that RCMRD and NASA works with, so that they're exposed to the science and its application for decision making. And again, coming up is the Inspire Hackathon, which we are hoping to provide mentorship for. But apart from that, I've been working as an agent of change through mentorship, but also trying to create an environment that is more conducive for women, especially in our workplace. And I'll talk about that in the next slide later on. So on the context of gender and space, I want to talk about the African context. And this is just an overview, and this is a personal perspective on where we are based on my understanding. And what we've seen over the last few years is that, one, data is becoming more readily available. We have a lot of spatially continuous and temporary available Earth observation data that is free, and medium resolution data that is more available. And if you look at the different initiatives that are ongoing, it's clear that the value of Earth observation in achieving SDGs is clear because of its power in disaggregation, and you know, it's with more data being freely available, the issue of cost comes in, but also the potential for integration. But again, in Africa, what has driven the change and the acceptance and the adoption of Earth observation-driven data and products for decision-making is because we've seen an unprecedented growth in use of mobile phones and internet tools such as the ones that we are developing, tools for crowdsourcing, tools for data analysis, tools for decision-making. And you can see that especially Kenya is leading in development of technologies that seek to package the information for different audiences, especially in the agriculture and food security space. And when we think about gender issues, if I look at Africa, where we are right now, is a lot of optimism in the progress that has been made. And from the latest report, we've seen that there is an increase in primary school education completion by girls. And this means that as women become more educated, then they become more resilient and able to take advantage of all the emerging technologies for decision making, either for agriculture and for other purposes. But we've also seen an increase in women in power, and these positions being created where women can have a voice and where they're empowered. But again, despite all this growth, I think in Africa, there's still no country which is on course in achieving gender equality targets. And I was asking myself why this change has been slow, because there's so much progress that we've seen in the last 5 or 10 years. And from my perspective, is that there's a lot of unintentional biases. Are we conscious of gender inclusivity in terms of events that we are holding, in terms of technical forums that are being held, and in the way we package information, in the way we communicate, and the way we disaggregate data? But there are also other, so those are unintentional, because sometimes we don't think about that. But then there are also intentional biases. We have stereotypes and prejudices that are coming back from our backgrounds and cultural and social norms. But I usually say that this is a really good time to be a woman in Africa because there are a lot of opportunities for growth and for advancement. But why are we not taking them? And one of them is rigidity. We have been preconditioned and we have imposed these barriers on ourselves that limit how far we can go. And so to finish up, I was trying to think about what needs to happen. And what needs to happen, I divided it into 4 parts. And, if I begin with the workplace, the need to realize that, the fact that we've created these quotas for gender participation does not mean that is a free pass. And we need to create and to push for communities of excellence so that women are not just given the opportunity, but they can also deliver. But again, also recognize and acknowledge that these gender biases exist and be a voice to respond to them. But I think the biggest progress that I have made in my career is because of the right mentorship. And so this is very important in both the workplace and in the education system. But again, I like the latest statement ahead of this day by Antonio Guterres. He was saying that what we need to change is that we need to stop trying to change women and start changing the systems. Systems need to adapt and reduce the barriers that prevent women from achieving their potential, but also being sensitive to the needs of women. Our systems in the workplace need to be sensitive. And in our organization, we have championed and had the endorsement of flexible hours for mothers with young children, but also inclusion of immunization days as part of the sick leave for their children. But again, as a woman with a young child, I've encountered challenges when I want to travel to technical forums, even where I'm very interested to support to attend, because there's no support for women with children. You need to have some support for you to travel with your children, and this is a limiting factor. But again, as a scientist in creating the products and the services that we're creating using Earth observation, I think there's need for us to be very sensitive and cognizant of the way we package information, of the way we communicate, of the way we collect data, so that we are able to capture in the gender requirements. Again, the issues of inclusivity and participation. And in education, teaching our girls, especially in our case, that gender does not define potential. I really detest women being termed as the fairer sex, which means the weaker sex, because then again it creates that preconditioning, that sometimes is a barrier. And again, cultures where women have to defer to men, again that brings some challenges where women are sometimes not able to speak up. So, but again, women also need, even in education, to recognize the opportunities for advancing their education, because scholarships are very many, again, because they strengthen numbers. But then as scientists who are already aware of these opportunities, it's again our duty to make sure that those who need to know about them know them. And while we can create products and design services, unless they feed into laws and policies and influence the gender perspectives, then there is something still missing. So there's need for us to empower women, but also increase gender budgeting. And again, in informing decisions, in influencing policies, be sensitive of the power and income imbalances that are usually very common, especially in our African countries. And so I want to end there by saying that there has been a lot of progress that has been made, but there is need to sustain the momentum and to intensify and enforce these efforts, continue consolidating efforts, but also, again, being in a position to work with governments in positions of advisory, especially with the scientists. These need to increase the support to governments, not just by providing them Earth observation products and information, but also in structuring gender-sensitive policies and also supporting the implementation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lilian. That was very useful to give us such a structure presentation of the gender perspective in Earth observation. I don't think I've seen that before, actually. So thank you very much. I had a question. Please ask questions now to Lilian. You will get the chance again, of course, but ask questions in the chat box. I'm pointing in the direction of my chat box. I had a question. I will come back to the question. I'm sorry I didn't write it down, Lilian, but I had some questions to you. Thank you so much for your presentation. So we are ready to go to the private sector. Codrina.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I'm also ready and prepared. Okay, I have also prepared some slides that I would like to share with you. And I will not go through everything because it's a lot of information and the subject is basically a world in itself. Yes, can you see? Probably not. Let's see.
Not yet.
Now you should be able to see it.
Yes. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so 4 minutes. I'll go.
Okay, you can hide. Can you hide? Click on the hide on the bottom. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so I am going to try to very fast talk about Earth observation in the private sector, and I'm going to have a bit of a focus on exploitation platforms because this is the place where we are at this point. So a little bit about me. I am a technical geographer. I did geography. I work, as I mentioned, in a Romanian-based company, TerraSigna. Here I am involved in different projects. I also lead one with respect, from the part of my company as a technical officer. I have also been involved through TerraSigna into an open source initiative with the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies, a group that I've been leading there, related to understanding the maturity of this ecosystem. And together with a colleague of mine, also a lady, we have been leading an Earth observation group in BDVA, which is Big Data Value Association, at the level of the European level. I think that I'd like to mention is that I have been volunteering basically since I've known myself as a geographer from my second year. I'm involved in geospatial.org, which is a Romanian community, and that has led to being, as I mentioned, involved in the international community for open source for geospatial that I will come back to later. I am a big supporter of open data and open access, and of course of open source. I've been using open source for over 13 years now. Going further, so just a very little bit of background of the company I work in, because it's important to understand from where this private sector vision comes from. So TerraSigna is an SME. It is 100% a Romanian company, and we've been around for about 12 years, I believe. Our areas of expertise are regard monitoring services based on satellite data and in situ data related to various domains such as urban areas analysis, wetland, agriculture, forestry. We are also highly involved in web-based applications development, like exploitation platforms development, also working and developing analytics tools related to geospatial data. Some of our clients, some of the people that we've been working with involve like the World Bank or Inter-American Development Bank. We're also working with the Romanian Authority for Agriculture Subsidies here in Romania for about 3 years now, something in that respect, and of course also the European Commission and European Space Agency. So from a private sector perspective, but please keep in mind that we are talking about someone working at an SME. So for us, from this specific perspective, there are two main directions that have helped and supported increasingly the private sector to develop. And on one side, we're talking about the most ambitious Earth observation program that we have at this point, which is Copernicus. And on the other side, it is related to the development of the open source for geospatial solutions that we have at this point. So as I was mentioning that I was leading one initiative group in Ask related to the maturity of this, of the open source. During our analysis and study, it became clear to us that this ecosystem is mature, and at this point we have an open source solution basically for any part of the cycle for Earth observation and geospatial data processing, storage, processing, visualization, analysis, serving the products, and so on. And of course, in the same line of thought, open standards, the development and the high usage of open standards. So thank you, OGC, for that. But of course, this kind of changed the paradigm. And why do I say that? Because we are living, without a doubt, in a world that is over-flooded, we may say, with geodata. And that led to a different perspective that would include moving the user to the data instead of the data to the user, meaning that a scientist or a remote sensing specialist doing some analysis would not download the data and work on its own infrastructure, but moving into these so-called exploitation platforms or into the cloud. So at this point, at European level and at international level, there are a lot of solutions in that direction. So ESA started developing this idea of the exploitation platforms in around 2013. So they had 3 types of such exploitation platforms. One was related to the theme, one to the specific mission, and one to the regional. And that was, the idea was continued at the European Commission level, for example, with the data and information access services, or if you would like, the geospatial cloud. And at this point, there are 5 that are 5 operational. So, going back to the sector perspective, the private sector perspective, we can talk. I can share the views from both of these perspectives. We have also been a provider because we have been involved in the development of the coastal thematic exploitation platform, and also a pathfinder for a regional exploitation platform for the Black Sea and the Danube. And we are also part of a consortium, a Romanian consortium that is developing an exploitation platform specifically Romanian for the Romanian authorities, our Sparrow project. And the other side, which is closer to where I am involved, is related to the usage of these services that we also do, because we are also interested in using, for example, DIASs in order to develop our services and for their dissemination, and also interested in financing opportunities for further development of the platform capabilities. So from a provider perspective, the situation in which we find ourselves at this point, the private sector, is that we have significant solutions from which we can choose. So this is just a slide showing all the solutions, some of them that are available at this point. So you can see that in the middle are the solutions that we have worked on, and we can be a provider. So that is that can be considered like one perspective. And related to building a business service on an exploitation platforms, there are also some barriers that I and the level of our company we have identified. One is, and probably we'll find out more about this or from Sandra. It is related to the legal aspects. This is a study from 2018 from BHO Legal, talking about the legal deficiency, if I can say so, regarding to the legal information for the current Earth observation exploitation platforms. The study again was in 2018, related to financial. It inquires some significant costs. When you change the paradigm of your workflow, and another aspect is related to the sustainability question, if you'd like. It's related to the level of maturity of these the exploitation platform that you choose to work with. And of course, another one that we have and I have encountered was related to the trust of the customers that we have, for which we create services, we develop services and we offer them, is their trust to upload, let's say, the data says that they have to an external platform, and not on our infrastructure, but external, like regional or European. So that can also be a barrier. So related to what I'd like to mention here, that related to the financial aspects, an important development direction is related to innovating in platform capabilities, and there are some financing opportunities in that respect. I will not insist on that. So that is in very, very short perspective on the say private sector perspective on Earth observation. So talking from Bucharest, Romania. Now you have also asked me to talk a little bit related to gender equality and in the gender balance and in my career until now, and what I consider of. I think that, as it has already been said, in some parts is more difficult than others. The differences are more obvious. I have to admit that I have been. Maybe it's good to say that lucky that I haven't had significant impediments due to being a woman. I think what Lillian said before, that education and to talk about these things, these not necessarily situations, but these aspects from high school and going on into the university years is very, very important. I am happy to say that in my decade only career, I have seen obvious improvements, at least in the world that I move around. For example, in our company, I think we're a little bit, I think the percentage between men and women, I think we're a little bit more women than men. Another idea is that, for example, in the not-for-profit organization I was mentioning before, AfriGEO, Open Source for Geospatial Compass, which is, as I mentioned, a not-for-profit organization for basically open source software development for geospatial. In the board of directors, which is formed out of 9 people, 5 are women and 4 are men. So in the conferences that I go to and in interaction with people, I can see an obvious concern for achieving equality in representativeness of women in boards and panels for presentations and so on. So I would say that this is, I think that we are definitely going into a good direction, at least in Earth observation, in the Earth observation field. And something that I'd like to end up with, this is one tweet that I've seen and I really appreciate, is related to, just a few groups of women in various working fields, like Ladies of Landsat, or women in IRO, women in NASA, and so on and so forth. So I think we're going into a good direction. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Codrina. Thank you very much for both the private sector and platform exploitation platform presentation, and your observations on gender equality. I have, again, please ask questions. Don't be shy. Ask a question in the chat box. While I'll let you do this now. I made notes, so I remember what I was going to ask. So as you know, this is a NextGeo's webinar series and NextGeo's is a data hub and platform. And when I saw your overview there of various platforms, I did not see NextGeo's. Did you consider NextGeo's in TerraSigna? Have you been looking into NextGeo's, or is that out of the scope of what you are doing?
Well, I can basically speak for what I've been involved in. So first of all, that slide, I know that it's incomplete, and probably it will never be complete because the solutions are expanding. But I have looked at it, for example, in the project that we are starting now, which is a European project, GeoHarmonizer, and we are searching for an infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, where we can run algorithms and store data and so on and so forth. But we haven't really reached a conclusion yet. We're all looking at DSs and also at the NextGeo. So it's a difficult decision to make. It's from part, it's related to the barriers that I've mentioned, in the previous slide, but it's understanding and investing into building and developing a business service on a platform requires some thorough analysis and also some risk taking. So it's a bit, I would say it's still to be analyzed.
It's a challenge too for those who are planning to have something operational on this not so certain platforms where you don't know if you can rely on them in the future. I mean, the sustainability of many of these platforms is an issue. I think that's a common issue. Yes. But so another perspective on all these platform exploitation platforms, and you mentioned big data and very obviously we have a lot of resources and technical know-how. Now the question is, if we cannot use it, it's not worth much, is it? So have you observed some human factors in it? As not only gender, but I guess this goes for men and women alike. Any perspective on making it user-friendly or helping people actually making use of this fantastic technology?
Well, it's I think for Earth observation, maybe it's a bit simpler than for other technologies because they're really eye-catching. For example, I've had some very interesting encounters with actors from insurance and reinsurance sector, and they had no prior knowledge to it. So it's really eye-catching, and you usually get their attention. And what I've also noticed is that Hollywood has had a very significant aspect related to how people understand exactly what can we extract, what knowledge can we extract from satellite imagery. So yes, it's I think it's a bit easier, but what the really helpful thing is that, for example, like the company like TerraSigna, we are not sending satellites into space. So our line of field, if I can say so, is to build that extra layer. We are the technical people that extract the information, and what we give is not raw data, but what we give is analysis-ready data, and even further data, knowledge, information that different customers, users can base their decision-making, whatever that is, if we're talking about national authority, or if we're talking about some company that is offering insurance for flooded areas. So yeah, it's and there is a significant push from the European Commission and from ESA as well for the development of exactly these of exactly this sector. So,
okay, thank you very much. I'm looking into the chat. I don't see any questions. I have more for later, but now I think we are ready to hear about some legal aspects to make this data work for us in our society. So, Sandra, are you ready to share your knowledge with us?
Share.
Yeah, share.
Share. And I'm trying to... Okay.
And again, hide your little slab there at the bottom of your... Yes,
Hi.
thank you. It is for the replay, you see. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And I think the link with what Codrina said will be a very swift presentation, this swift move. So my topic is the same line on Copernicus and in data, but on the legal aspects, mainly on its open data policy. And I just, as an introduction, I started this topic, this research. My motivation of this research was because before I was working at the Mexican Space Agency, and in 2014, the scientific community came to us and requested how to access Copernicus data. And at the time, we didn't know what was Copernicus data. And when they told us, oh, it is for free and it is open, just we want to know more about it. And we couldn't understand what is data for free. We only knew Landsat, but we didn't know there was more options. And this is how I started this research journey, and inspired by basically scientists talking about Copernicus. So this is just an overview. As you all know, what is Copernicus, but just for the sake of clarity, Copernicus is this Earth observation civil program from the European Union that is coordinated by the Commission, and it is assisted by European agencies, ESA, and private sector. And my main message in this slide is that Copernicus success, I'd like to say that it's its open data policy. And it's because of precisely this full, free, and open, as they define it, they have come with the Copernicus ecosystem, which is a tailored Earth observation system, European, in which it has provided all these areas of development on the upstream, on the midstream, and also on the downstream that at the end, as this analogy mentions it, has flourished into the user uptake, and the Commission has also aimed to provide the Earth observation data a user value, so this can be exploited for societal benefits and economic benefits. Nevertheless, of what we could see that it is a success, the open data policy has been recently criticized, or some skepticals of this policy have been merged in the EU, political level, arguing that Copernicus is feeding the US big tech giants and could hamper the European competitiveness. So if this is the case, then it has been put into question, should we then modify the Copernicus data policy by either modifying it under any of its pillars of full, free, and open? So I try to answer this question in my thesis by saying under which circumstances can this be taken into consideration, or even so, if we could even take this into consideration. So if this really is valid. The main message that I want to convey here is that the Copernicus program is not only a market tool, but it is also a public good that aims to foster not only economic, but also societal benefits. And in my opinion, this should be preserved for the stewardship of the environment, as it was its core goal in the law. So, of course, it is important that the Commission should preserve the European Union competitiveness, but also it should be important to take into consideration that there are also environmental interests that need to be protected. And most importantly, the interest of the scientific community, not only in Europe, but also worldwide, to have access to this information is crucial to guarantee the accuracy of all these product development and all other technologies that are as well focused on the environment. Also, it is important to note that Copernicus is facing the same paradox as other cases where the environment faces economic interest, and how can we balance both of them to achieve the best and an optimal result. So in the event that, yes, let's call the GAFAs, this Google and Amazon, provide probably a risk or pose of threat on the economic aspect, it need to be taken into consideration that also the benefits that they provide as a source of information are also very, very valid for the scientists to take also the Copernicus data and develop such products that at the end will pursue this user value, mainly for the societal benefits, including the protection of the environment. So this is an overview, very in a nutshell, of this polemic topic, if I can say polemic, or this idea, this conception that has been occurred. And if I come then to the thoughts on the gender equality perspective in academia, in my opinion, I've seen that in the area of space law, it is clear that it has been a more man predominance as in the space sector as well. But recently, I've been looking at my students in the Master Space Law, and in a group of 20 people that we have, 15 students are female. So then we can say that it is shifting, and hopefully in a good way, where there are more opportunities, and rightly, to impulse women in education and in their career. However, I'll see that, of course, there's still room of improvement, because, for example, when I went to the space policy conference that happened in January in Europe, mainly the assistants were men. There were few women. We were still there, but there were few. And this was noticed by the speech of the Vice President of the Commission, Mrs. Vestager, when she addressed her opening speech, and then she rightly says, "Good morning, men, gentlemen, gentlemen, gentlemen." So we all, of course, smile at that this was a fact, and mainly the people who applauded were women, because it is true that this is still the case. And I think that, as previously has been mentioned, education is crucial, but it's also crucial to encourage women to take risks and also be bold as men, because in academia also it's not new that women are very dedicated to their classes. They take notes, and almost they always get the best grades. So why this is not reflected in the professional career? I would say that, in my opinion, I would say that it still needs room for empowering them, although, of course, the society, or also even the system, to cope, so the women can cope with their wishes and desires of raising a family, but at the same pursue a career that before, of course, was not even an option, and now it could be possible. But if we encourage them to do so and take these risks, just to finalize this thought, I think that now this is a new generation that has more empowerment, and I would say that the future is promising as long as we encourage them to take these risks. So we can, as we both have equal capacities, men or women have equal capacities to do so. So I think this should be the way to go. And I think that's all that I have.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for both the legal aspects and your thoughts on the gender equality. I just want to make one again. Please ask a question in the chat box if you have one. I have a comment related to the environmental. Why? What kind of problems are there? Can we at all go back from being openly sharing data? Which I have to admit, I did not know that was such a prominent thought in Europe at this time. This is a surprise to me, because I'm involved in updating the recommendation for the use of electronic tools for sharing information, environmental information, as following up the Aarhus Convention. So it's a UN Convention on Environment. And there we were updating to be even more strongly encourage free and open sharing of environmental data, exactly for the reasons that you said. So this is perhaps just a comment and an FYI for you, to know that so there are different streams, and some are still working very relentlessly, like we are doing in GEO, relentlessly to promote open data sharing. And then you have this strange thing in Europe, I would say, related to Copernicus. And it's a bit strange for me to hear this also, because I know that the fact that Europe decided to make the Copernicus data free and open was driven strongly by the data sharing principles in GEO. So this is a bit strange. Anyways, can you unshare, Sandra?
Yes.
To me? Thank you. Any questions? I don't see any questions. I think we will then move to you, Marie-Francoise. And
okay. I am ready. Just a minute. Can you see my screen?
Not quite yet. It's probably a delay.
Okay.
It's promising, yes.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So I have introduced myself at the beginning of the webinar, but I just want to emphasize that I have made most of my career with beginning with the 2 degrees in IT and in meteorology. I have made most of my career on information systems applied to meteorology and to meteorological data for outside customers, like in defense, in the spatial domain, communities, in aeronautics. And I have seen none of these domains to be closed to women. Even on the French aircraft carrier, when at the time where I have managed some projects, there were 10% of women, more or less. And I understand that it is difficult when you are the only one. This happened to me once in a conference of 70 people to be the only one. But now when we have 10 or 15%, I don't think there is any problem to reach 50%. So I have always invested time in my career also to share my knowledge via international trainings and conference. So the capacity development and training have been mentioned. I think it's very important to share the training, and this is something, an area where we find a lot of women in education. And then I have served as a Meteo France representative in OGC, and I was chairing the OGC domain working group. In OGC, there are not so many women who are chairing groups. There are not a big portion of women either. And really, my message here, and this is why I'm here in this webinar, to encourage people and to encourage women to go to technology, because I think it's I never fully understand why we are not more numerous in this area. So since 2017, I joined OGC as a director in the innovation program, and I will explain a little bit what this is it. I'm also involved in several initiatives of importance for the GEO group of Earth observation, where I meet regularly, and it's a pleasure, Angelica and Bente. And I am involved in H2020 European projects, NextGeos and eShape, in some initiatives for disasters management and information system. And I'm an alternate representative for OGC at the GEO program board, so very involved in GEO and all these activities around Earth observation. So what is the Open Geospatial Consortium? It has been mentioned a little bit before, well, quite a lot before. And it's a forum where we gather a broad community of experts, making location data and information more findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So our core activity is to develop standards. We are well known for that, but this is not the only thing we do. So we make the link between the communities, the different alliances working on standards, and we develop a process which is very, very well defined to make sure that the consensus is clean and open to all, and to push innovation. And so this is the process we use to develop these standards in a very fair way. So what is interoperability? Is how to make the link between the human systems, the natural systems, and the physical infrastructures and the technology, because the technology can, of course, and does every day, this is what we have mentioned before, support all the decisions for the human society, and based on the natural systems evolutions and situations. So I said that OGC is well known for the development of standards. This is not the only thing we do, because all the work we do is driven by a very keen watch on the technological trends. And then we have the innovation program I am involved in. And we also have a compliance program to make sure that the standards are well implemented and that there will be the implementation, we have high quality to ensure a good interoperability, and we make a lot of outreach. So I will dive a little bit into the innovation program because this is the one I am attached to. So in Europe, in the US, it works a little bit differently, but we develop a lot of initiatives based on scenarios of real life and see how the technology and the standards are applicable to solve this problem. And if we see any lack in the standards, this is where we try to improve and push the development of standards. Myself, I am very involved in NextGeos and eShape, which are two projects from the European Commission, H2020 projects. And these two projects are a contribution to EuroGeos, which is itself a contribution to the GEOS system of systems of the GEO group on Earth observation. These projects have in common some main activities, which are to make Earth observation more accessible to all. NextGeos was also developing technology, and eShape also had the implementation of 27 pilots. And we make the needed knowledge accessible to all. So again, we reach here the education and the capacity building, which we have mentioned is critical, and it's very important also for the women community. And we clarify, and we try in eShape, one of the main goals I have to deal with, or one of the main challenges, is to clarify the current Earth observation landscape and resources which are offered in Europe. This has been mentioned before with the ESA platforms that can sometimes be more focused on regional aspects or on missions or on thematic. And this is what we have to clarify, because this environment is very complex, but it has a very good potential for developing business and services. And so this is why we try to support the education and facilitate the use, the access, the discoverability, the access, and the use of these data. So when people talk about technology, it is regularly presented as an opportunity or as a threat. But technology is just what people do with it. Its use and implementation just reflect the people's intentions. In the case of GEO, GEOS, and all the projects I'm mentioning here, everything is good. All the intentions are really good, and for the well-being of the humankind. I have mentioned that these projects are a contribution to GEO system of systems, and the group of Earth observation is an intergovernmental organization which is working to improve the availability and the access and the use of Earth observation for the benefit of the humankind. So all the efforts are very positively targeted to develop knowledge, means to address all types of problems which are impacting the society and its sustainability without borders. These international activities and projects develop a lot of resources, and these resources support the knowledge development online, which is a big opportunity for anyone who wants to learn of age, gender, or location. And if education can be a barrier for the women, all these projects which are about technology applied to Earth observation are really an opportunity, because there is a lot of material, a lot of resources which are developed online. And this is available really to all, and I would like to emphasize this. So I really feel blessed to have the opportunity to learn from others in this environment, to contribute to push innovation, to break barriers. This is what I have done during my whole career, to break barriers between the meteorological communities and the users and the complexity of the data, and and this is why I think that standards are at the core of this activity to break the silos, because thanks to the standards, we develop this interoperability. So you see that all my career, all my activity is consistent around that. And I'm very happy when I can transmit my knowledge, and this is something I can do through these projects. And both NextGeos and eShape are exactly about this. So what I would like to witness too is that before I have worked for 30 years into the public environment, now I work into a private environment, and you can have a consistent career working, following your values from the public to the private. This is not any barrier. And when evolving into the different workshops and conferences, just to address something which has been mentioned before, I'm always questioned sometimes about the low portion of women in some communities, but this is not in all communities. Earth observation is very broad. And what I have observed is that, for instance, in the ocean community, there is quite a good amount of women. In the legal environment also, I can observe quite a good amount of women, but this is not the case in technology. And I don't end understanding why. I really think there is some type of glass ceiling here. And well, what I would like is really to encourage women to come more to technology and specifically apply to Earth observation, where the activities are so broad and everyone can find its place where you would feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marie-Francoise. That was a very positive encouragement to end our series of presentations. Do you unshare your screen as well?
Yes, I'm looking. Okay, here.
Yes. And then we can share all our smiling faces. Thank you all. I mean, this has been so interesting, and I well, when you plan this, you have some sort of idea that you will get this overview, but it was even better in my wildest imaginations to see the different areas that we cover. I will give the floor. Do you have any comments to each other now? I will let you, while we are waiting for some comments, some questions. Yes, Angelica.
So I really liked the way that Lilian introduced herself. I loved it. She said, in addition to her, background, technical background, she said, "I'm the mother of two," right? And I think that that's important. I'm also the mother of two. I have a set of twins, and that is important to talk about because, I mean, we are in a society where mothers, we have a very important role also in our families, and I think that when we talk about looking for equality, we need to, or at least that's my perspective, we need to realize that, at least in my case, no, I will not look for equality, because for me, my kids have a very special place. And if I have to choose between, reviewing proposals or volunteering for this or that, and my kids, I know who's going to win. So what is our role? When we talk about equality, that means equality, that word equality really don't, in my case, I cannot go for equality. I want to bridge that huge gap. I don't want to be 20/80. I would like to be, I don't know, 40/60, knowing that percent, I'm going to reserve it for my family. So I would like to hear the perspective of the participants here. How do you feel, or what do you see our role in, and also that limitation in some way of being a mother for those who are mothers here?
Yeah, hand raising mothers. Yeah, so we have 4 mothers and 2 mothers to be, perhaps. So yeah, Marie-Francoise, do you have any thoughts on being a mother? You have 3. I know you have 3.
Yes, I have 3 children who are grown up now. They are between 25. They are 25, 27, and 28. So you can see that I have been very busy with them for a while. And I have to admit that I could follow my career with the 3 children. Well, my husband is a very nice husband, but my mother has helped me a lot. Also, my parents that were always here when I had to travel and when I needed them. That's true that when I had to invest myself more for my work and travel, I needed some help, and I was the one organizing that to make sure, because I could not focus on my work if I am not sure that my children are fine. Okay, so this is clear, and so you are responsible to make sure that your children will be fine, because this is a condition for you to focus on your work. So you need help. I think you need to organize that, and the society can help. And so I think I'm lucky in France because we have good nurseries, we have good schools. So this is very important. There is a society support which is needed, and the family support and the environment, of course, helps.
Yes. So when you say that, so this is what I've been told, Lilian, that in Africa, you say that you need a whole village to raise the children. It's not sufficient with a child, with the family. You need a whole village. I don't know if it's true, but this is definitely what I learned about Africa. What do you say?
Yeah, it's true, because I think when I got, so my daughter is a bit older, but my son is only 2 years. So when I got my son, I think my family has had to also rearrange their lives and account for the fact that there's a new child in the family. And, everyone takes time to take care of the baby if I'm traveling, when I can't travel with him. So, yes, I think, and my mother specifically, she had to rearrange her life, especially when the baby was younger. So I think family is really important. And in Africa, I think it's the family and the community raises, not the community really, maybe, I think because of urbanization and all that, but your family really plays a great role in raising your kids. But I think being a mother again makes you sensitive to the challenges of working mothers. And I realized how insufficient the facilities were for lactation and the inflexibility of the policies when I became a young mother myself. So, yeah.
Yes, you raised your hand, Marie-Francoise.
Yes, I think that taking care of the children and our career at the same time really helps us to take care of very different things at the same time, develop emotional intelligence. So I'm not saying that we are equal and that we have to look for equality. We are different, but this develops certain assets, and we just have to use them. And what I mean is that the technology and the area we are working in, Earth observation, lets space to enjoy all these skills, these different skills we can get and develop and enjoy them, and for the benefit of all.
So, Angelica, when you say, well, equality doesn't mean like being identical. So we do have, because of this motherhood and because of this obvious biological differences, we do have something that is unique for us, but I guess it's equally different depending on the culture and where we come from. But we do have this motherhood, and I think that so we just have to take that into consideration for women, that they are having this role. It doesn't mean that we are against. I mean, equality is still. I think this is a misunderstanding, that equality means identical to. It means that we should be equally valued, and we should be given equal opportunities to pursue our dreams and be useful for the society to our full capacity. So
yes, I think that the key word there then is equal opportunities. We should have equal opportunities, and we will define, for each person what that limitation is going to be for motherhood. but equal opportunities, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, so I don't know if you've heard about gendered innovations. I have a very good, so our perspectives on technology, Marie-Francoise, can be different actually. So like when we are considering a user, we are thinking, what kind of user is it? What is the situation around the user? So when you start to think about that, you also have to think, well, what's special with this particular user group, for instance, women? And I have an example from Google. It was at the Stanford University. They were having this big project together with the European Commission, by the way. So it was a mixed American-European project. And so it was gendered innovation. And very often you hear this, that, well, technology is neutral. There is no gender perspective. And then Google developed this translation tool, right? So they are having these algorithms that they translating from one language to another. It's a rather fancy thing after a while now. But in the beginning, they had not taken into account the difference between the fact that we had at least two genders, right? He and she. So when they were translating all different languages and said he, because they didn't have any other gender, you can imagine all the funny stories you could create on that. So Google is actually they realize that, okay, yeah, gender perspectives into technology and innovation is actually an issue at the same way as any other perspective in scientific and technology development. So I think, the fact that we are at least two genders makes a difference. So in law, Sandra, since we are talking about this, differences and similarities in law, is there any perspective from legal perspective that where you are considering gender? I think we need to turn off the mics and Sandra on.
The mic. Well, legal perspective in gender in which area, or is it a broad question? Oh, this is the lawyer
in your when you are no, it's you are looking at the space law, and so is there even is it a relevant question? Is there a difference between that you have to take into account when you are talking about legal aspects in space law, that we have multiple genders?
Have to say I haven't thought about that, but I have
the sound. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I haven't come across that subject of the differences of genders in space law specifically. But I think we could say, for example, on the International Space Station, that there has been more astronauts that are female astronauts that are going more to space. So, and of course, the wording usually is a very male-driven wording, if I can say so. I mean, I haven't really put a lot of thought about it, but is that maybe something that needs to be taken into consideration, or we just go as the wording of the space treaty that is dated since the 60s?
Yeah. No, it's just that asking these questions. I mean, this time of the year is perhaps where we can ask these questions. So Marie-Francoise, I know that you have been working on this onboarding system. So you have a technology, all the fancy things in addition to NextGeo's, like Codrina was, presenting. We have a whole lot of systems that are being used by humans. And the onboarding, when you were just, can you talk a little bit about the onboarding perspective, the human perspective on the onboarding that you worked on in NextGeos? The mic.
Each of us has his very personal background, and this is not a matter, I think, of gender, man or women. And my mom was a teacher, and she had a lot of books about education and we call that pedagogy, we say in French. And so it's about taking into consideration how the other is going to receive your message, because when you want to teach someone and when you want to communicate, it's just it's not a one direction communication. The others has to be able to interact and understand what you are talking about. And this is what I have tried to bring into the onboarding system of NextGEOs, is to put the human into the loop. Not only talk about technology, not only present the technology without considering who is going to receive the message, but taking into account the diversity of the Earth observation community I mentioned before. So when we develop such system in front, we can have users who are scientists, who are IT experts, who are young, who just beginning the development of the career and the development in IT, or they can be experts. They will not have the same behavior. They don't have the same background. You can have project managers that just want to have a very high view from one end to the other end and will not go into the detail of the implementations. And they want to identify the risk. They will have a different view to the project. And this is what I have tried to bring into the onboarding system of NextGEOs, to make a system and a documentation that can be readable by anyone, whichever his background. So putting the human into the loop. The mic, Bente.
Yes, the humans. Sorry. When you put the humans into the loop, as you say, that's when we can also include the gender perspective. And remember that we are talking also to mothers, for instance. So when you create an avatar user, that's putting the human into the loop. So you have an avatar, you think about the skills, but you also think about the interest, the whole human being. And when you do that, you actually also should, in a larger extent, perhaps, take into account that some of these users or avatars are women. So, and I think in the marketing world, they are much more sensitive to this. So we should be that in Earth observation as well.
You're right. To develop this onboarding system, I have used the persona methodology, which comes from marketing. And the first time I have seen this methodology, it was applied when I was working with Meteo France, and we were applying it for the communication of alert messages. And I remember that one of the personas we had designed was a grandmother who had to pick her children, and there was some crisis and she could not go and pick the children when she had this responsibility that was delegated by her daughter. And so this puts a lot of stress on the person. And how should you communicate to make sure that she's not going to go out of the house? And so this is where you take into account, yes, the behavior, and this behavior can be driven by your gender, right?
Yeah. So gender and culture, yeah. So
gender and culture, right?
Yes, yeah.
And language, I would say, coming from with my native language is Spanish, and we have el and la, same for French. And when I came to English, everything was it. So no gender in the communication, when we use English. So that was kind of a learning experience to me. And of course, then that made me realize that the issue of gender differentiation is even more important. I think that for languages, for communities with Latin languages, where we give a gender to absolutely every piece of furniture. So, so I think that language is another piece that needs to or play a role in this communication.
Yeah, But I think going back to what you said, Lilian, you had done a very good analysis of integrated in your presentation there, that there are lots of, even though you see there's an improvement, but empowering the girls and women in Africa is something that we hear of here in Norway, we as well, you know, in the other continent. And then you are saying, and you are conscious then about the limitations that perhaps lies in our heads, that we are, you know, putting barriers on ourselves. And I as I've grown older, I have come to tell myself, when I was younger, it was, I am an astrophysicist. I almost became an astronaut, by the way. But so I was very, very alone as a woman, and it was quite clear to me that I was different than the others. And then it was like a point of being different. You focused on being different. But now, as I grow older, I say the way that I am a woman, that's the normal way. Is like, I think that, you know, it's sort of empowering ourselves to say, there's nothing special with me. You know, I'm just what I do, what I'm interested in, perfectly normal. I think that could be one way of, at least this is my experience.
So yes, and I agree, because I think the worst barriers are the ones that we impose on ourselves. And, you know, so like, as I was saying, that there are a lot of opportunities for women in Africa, and there are forums, that there are laws and policies that say we must have 30% of women. We put incentives for higher participation, in this case by women, because you find that, again, for us, when we speak about gender, we're looking at, you know, a balance in participation and inclusion, and you have men-only trainings, and, you know, this is despite creating that opportunity or incentive for women to attend. And so I feel like there's a lot of opportunities, you know, for education, and there was a mention of a lot of tools online that, you know, we can use to self-improve our technical skills. But, you know, have we imposed these barriers and say that, you know, there are no opportunities, or, you know, there are limited opportunities, and because of that, we fail to see, you know, the endless opportunities that are already available, and end up not taking them. And, you know, it's back to the same old story that, you know, we need to create opportunities for women, but the opportunities are there, but women sometimes do not take them. So, yes.
Microphone.
You spelled it out, Marie-Francoise. This is what I'm saying. You spelled it out, that there is, in fact, now with the technology, that there are endless opportunities for women around the world to join, to empower themselves and to contribute to the Earth observation community that we all represent here. I just want, because now we are really over we are 3/4 into the next hour. I just want to say that Monica had to leave, Monica from ERSC, and she gave us some numbers saying that the last survey they did is still somewhat fewer women in the private sector than men. So 30-70 seems to be the distribution of women versus men still. So there's a potential to increase that. And we have seen an example of what the opportunities in the private sector are here with two women, Codrina and Sandra. I guess you both represent the private sector here. We also, and I don't know if Bilgunma, that's I assume that's your nickname, from Japan. So she's saying happy International Women's Day to us. And thank you so much for joining us from all the way from Japan. I guess it's very late there now. Yes. I think we should conclude. I want to conclude on this very positive note that both Lillian and Marie-Francoise sort of got together here, and show more opportunities for you if you are interested in joining the Earth observation community. we are we just created this subgroup in the GEO program board, so the group on our subservation program board, which is overlooking the work program of GEO, and we are addressing diversity and equality. So we have a subgroup, so we are really conscious about that. I think it was you, Codrina, who mentioned that very often we see panels consisting of all males, and this is not acceptable anymore. So this is being addressed in GEO. So I think that I see that as a welcoming to women, actually, and not only women, but also people from around the entire globe, not only white males, but also Black women or Asians. No matter where you come from, you are welcome, and in this community. So I actually included a link in the chat to that to an article where you can read more about this effort from GEO. And I also want to include the link that Lillian mentioned, namely to the Inspire Hackathon in Kampala. That's another possibility for you if you are interested in joining this wonderful community. There's a hackathon going on virtually, so you can do as Marie-Francoise said, use the technology from your home or for wherever you are and participate a couple of months. And if you want to go to Kampala, I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to Kampala or Uganda before, but I'm involved in this hackathon as well. So that's an opportunity, and you can read more about this in the link. And last but not least, this is a Next GEOS webinar, and Next GEOS has been leading the work on establishing a community activity called Next EOS. So it's not Next GEOS, but it's a community where we want the global group on our observation community to benefit from the resources we have developed and get access to the data hub and platform. And we already collaborate with you, Angelica, and AmeriGEO. And we have been in touch with AfriGEO. So Lilian, this is also something you can look into because that community activity it's very open, is open to everybody. So if you're interested in learning more about these tools and connecting with, globally, to this is a community that you can sign up for. So I sent you a link to a page where we are describing it, and you can subscribe to a mailing list so that you get alerts when there is something happening there. So that's what I had to offer you. Thank you so much to the speakers. I was really inspired. I'm not even pretending. I was really inspired. I hope we can use the presentations that you had. If you can make a PDF for me and send it to me, I will appreciate that, because after this webinar, I will edit the video, the recording of this webinar, and share the presentations and a presentation of you guys as well, you women, and spread this from this to this in this weekend, because the actual Women's Day is on the 8th of March. So we have a few days around there where we can promote Earth observation for women and men. So thank you.
I want to invite you all. So we will have AmeriGEO Week this year in Mexico, in Aguascalientes. INEGI is hosting in UNGGIN. So I think that this webinar is making me think about, how important to put an extra effort in engaging women in our region. So you are all invited, and thank you so much for this opportunity, Bente.
Thank you, Angelica. And I don't know if you know, but to your side there, Sandra, she's actually also Mexican. So maybe that will be an excuse to go back to the home country.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you again. Awesome. Have a lovely weekend and celebrate Women's Day the next few days as well. Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.